Hello and welcome to On to the Next Project. I'm Brian Miller,
And I'm Adam Krutinger.
and on this show, Adam and I have a weekly free-form conversation about building a living and a life with your passion.
Yes, and this week we're going to be talking about now what? Because the world has been kind of turned upside down. And for a lot of people, and especially the kind of people who would watch something like this, life as you know it, whatever business or even work you've been doing is changed for the foreseeable future and maybe even longer. So, and I know specifically
Yeah.
for you, I mean, it really affected both of us in a lot of ways, but it's more affecting my work now, where it's probably affected your work for a much longer time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like you just said, for the foreseeable future and maybe even longer.
Yeah,
I mean,
when I said that, I was like, that's kind of the same thing, but it still kind of makes a little bit of sense somehow.
yeah, yeah. So this has been wild. In the last 2 weeks, I watched my career of 15 years, all the work I've built, the relationships, everything that I had. I had bookings on through next February. I mean, I was booking almost a year out, and it was set to be a record banner year for me and my family and everything. In the last 2 weeks, I watched my career go from, oh, I might lose a couple of gigs this month or reschedule them to, oh, I might lose a couple of months worth of gigs or maybe reschedule them to, I don't know if I'm ever going to get to do this career again. And that has been really that's been really weird. I think more than anything, the uncertainty, it's not just that we're anxious about what's happening now, it's that we have no idea what to expect. Obviously, personally, we're all, I think we can all address it head on. People, I mean, it's scary. Like people are afraid. I'm afraid. I'm sure you're afraid. And in a lot of different places. I actually was conducting a podcast interview earlier today, and my guest, he called it fear soup. Because, like, for the first time ever, there's not just one fear. Like, we were talking about, the closest thing to this was the economic crisis, the recession in 2008, but that was one fear. The economy was collapsing. But
Yeah.
now we have the economy's collapsing. Every industry you know is collapsing. Education is collapsing. You might actually get sick. Your family, somebody you know is going to be affected by this. Hopefully not too close to home, but there's no way any of us get out. So you can see I'm scattered as I'm thinking about it right now in a way that I'm not usually. I'm not convinced the career I built for the last 15 years, stepping on stages, being in rooms of 100, 200, 1,000 people, I'm not convinced that's ever coming back. And I don't know what to do with that. Like, I don't know how to handle that in my head right now.
Yeah, it's something I keep going back and forth on because, in one sense, I do think, for a while, I completely thought that this is not coming back. Like, even, but then some people have fought me on that, and people I've talked to, they're like, "What about sporting events? Like stadiums full? Are they going to cancel that humongous industry?" I'm like, on one hand, I can't see them getting rid of it, but I can't see it going on the way it has been. So
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen. And one thing that I kind of think about, it's almost like I feel like the movie theaters were like knew this was coming or something, in
Mhm,
the way that movie theaters used to have their seats all together like this. But in
mhm,
the last couple of years, they want to get more comfortable, so it's all spread out more. And I
mhm.
wonder if, obviously, even though it's not spread out enough for what's happening right now, but maybe, a year or two from now, that's more of how things are going to be. Very limited. Oh, actually, it might help them too, because you know what? So let's say this. So let's say I know nothing about sports, but let's say a football stadium's got 5,000 people. Okay,
It's
we're
about
making
100,000 people, but
okay
go ahead.
100,000 people, 100,000 people. But you know what? Going forward, maybe it'll only be 1,000 people. So it's
Yeah.
way more spread out. But here's the benefit to the business end of that for them. Now it's a very prime price, right?
Yeah.
And it's less people to manage and that's pros and cons to that too, but there's a lot of money that goes into security and this and that and managing 30,000 people versus 1,000 people. So
Yeah.
and we've seen that happen again, well, like, for a crude comparison to the movie theater, and I wonder if
Yeah.
that's kind of the way things will be in the future.
Yeah, as over the last couple of years of theaters have gotten, as you said, more spread out, kind of more luxurious, they have about half as many seats in them as they did just a few years ago, and the prices are they're not double, but they're way up. I mean, the price of just going to the average movie right now is really high, and yet theaters are full. They're just well, I mean, until 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, they're
Yeah,
just
of course.
they've been full. So the concern with a model like that is always going to be what happens to the equity, right? What happens to the kind of lower class family, that just wants to take their 8-year-old to the Yankees or the Red Sox or whoever your favorite, let's not offend anybody here, whoever your favorite team is, and they don't have $400 a ticket that it's now going to cost, or $1,000 a ticket that it's now going to cost if you have a tenth as many people, 20th as many people. So I
Sure.
think that's an interesting question. I don't think sports are. I mean, I mean, the Olympics are getting canceled. Like, I don't know if sports
Yeah.
are going to come back. I
Well,
don't. I think business, forget life for a second. I think business as we know it already, that's it. It's over. Everything we've known about business since the Industrial Revolution is over as of about 2 weeks ago. And I think a lot of us are in the denial phase of that right now still. We haven't made it to acceptance, right? Like I feel like I saw on social media someone posted, like, all around the world, people are going through the 5 stages of grief with the world the way
yeah.
that they do, with anything else right now. It's really weird.
Yeah.
I'm mourning my career right now, like, in a
Yeah.
really weird way.
Well, you know what though? And also, I think this is just gonna be, the nail in the coffin in a different way, just because of a lot of these industries have had other problems as well. And this is just from another angle. Like, for example, I know there's been a lot of stuff in the news for the last couple of years or so about football and and like the concussions people are getting and stuff, and wondering about should we still have football? And that was to protect the players. But now, for another reason, it's about protecting the audience in live events too. And now it's like, now, how many, what's the straw that breaks the camel back? And at this point, if it's not going to be even financial, so here's the thing, my, to put it not lightly, they were willing to risk the players' health for the business. But
Absolutely.
now, if the people don't even go, what's going to happen to it?
Right. Right. No, I think that's absolutely right. And, but I do wanna talk, a little bit though about, let's not, I mean, it's easy to we could spiral really heavy and keep going down this route, but
I think we already
let's
have.
talk about the flips. Oh, yeah, right. So exactly. So let's pull out of that a little bit. Let's talk about the flip side, and I'm glad you just adjusted yourself because it looked like you were much shorter than you actually are
I
for a
did
while
while
there.
I was talking, I hit it with my leg and I just shrunk. I was like, "Oh, so I'm gonna go like this." So, sorry.
I wasn't sure what happened. I was like, "Am I imagining that, or is Adam shrinking?" Um, so let's talk about the upside, though. Uh, you've seen, I write a tremendous amount on my blog and on LinkedIn, and a lot of different places right now. And mostly what I've been writing about and thinking about over the last week or so is who is going to come out the other side of this, a leader who is going to lead the next wave of
Mm,
business, the new wave of business, because figure in any industry, and most industries were devastated, right? It's not like I keep thinking about the live event industry, but it's like, well, so were restaurants, and so were, right, you just keep naming them, education. So who's going to come out? I feel like it's going to be like 10 to 15%, right? The 10 to 15%, the strongest, are going to come out the other side and make the rules, right? They're going to get to set the rules and the guidelines and the expectations for how business is done starting in 2020 moving forward. And there's an opportunity here in any industry that you're in right now, whether you're a freelance photographer or you own a small bakery, and maybe you do go out of business right now. My heart goes out to the mom and pop stores and the restaurants that are all going out of business. But take a second and think about, if this continues 6 months from now, a year from now, what are people gonna need? They're still gonna wanna get cupcakes, right? They're still going to want photos of their moments, of their family moments, but how are they going to want to get that? And you have a chance now that instead of wallowing, right? I mean, appropriately mourn the loss of your business, and it's okay to feel sad right now, and it's okay to feel, confused and uncertain, but spend some time doing that and then put it to the side and think to yourself, what can I start doing now to be seen by my customers and my prospects as a leader out the other
Mhm.
side? How can I lead people into something better instead of follow the misery into whatever happens? Does that am I making sense?
No, it makes perfect sense, and actually, I think it connects with one of the other episodes that we did when we were talking about literally that example of being a baker, and then also
Yeah, that's right.
how do you digitize that,
Yeah.
I don't remember offhand which we'll link it right up here or here. I don't remember how it goes, but we'll link it there. But we talked all about that, and that was the example that we had. Even was the baker, and we gave advice of how to take an industry like that, something that you think could not possibly be online at a local level,
Right.
No, forget mass producing cupcakes and mailing them to people. I just mean turning yourself into a content creator when really you own a bakery. It sounds impossible. But we gave a lot of examples of how that can be, and I don't really see any other option. Because here's the thing, and another good reason to do that now, while we're in this lull, okay, is if it comes back, you'll at least have the brand recognition from all those people that loved following you.
Bingo. Exactly. And my instinct and what I keep telling friends and colleagues and folks I know that have, we've all been kind of making the calls, to each other. Hey, what are you doing? What's going on? What should I do? Should I be selling right now? Should I back off? Is it insensitive to try to but I need money, my family, right? There's all these concerns and questions, and there aren't any rule books right now. There's not even a reference point, right? For, well, last time something like this happened, here's what we did. There isn't one. What I keep telling people is, if you adopt a mindset of generosity right now, if you keep showing up in any way you can, and it doesn't mean it has to be free. You can right? You can show up for free for people. You can also show up and sell something, because there's a lot of people who need stuff. I mean, for instance, right now, anybody selling food, groceries, people need that. I mean, that's the most generous thing you could do, is have a well-stocked store and make yourself available right now. People will
Yes, yeah,
gladly pay. That is generous, right? You don't have to
yeah,
be free, but the point is, be as generous as you can right now to as many people as you can, particularly your clients, customers, prospects, people who might be hiring you or someone like you. Maybe not right now, but 6 months, 8 months, a year from now. So again, as you just said, when we come out the other side, you've built up this community of people who trust you, of people who remember how you were able to help them, and that's one of the things you can do, I think, to kind of future proof your business. Well, future proof, or at least give yourself the best chance at rebuilding.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, like I said, that's kind of the only option if you wanna stick with that and not pivot to something completely, which I can't imagine doing that. But, but yeah, but one thing even for someone like me as a school teacher during the day,
Yeah.
like, it's a completely different position because, as a public school teacher, my job is pretty safe unless there's a dramatic change to education, which is not out of the question, but I think it's very unlikely to happen that way, at least now. But I think this would start the shift, you know, and why I say for me personally is because I am an elementary school teacher. I think this will drastically expedite the transfer of colleges to completely online, and even high schools to an extent. But as you know, in kindergarten to 3rd grade, 5th grade, at those points there is a certain amount of in-person social interaction that is important, but that's not to say that it still won't dramatically change. Maybe it's even half weeks or something, just to, like, half online, half.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna ask you about, is obviously you can't long term, the way humans are built just biologically, we can't just go you can't just raise kids completely in isolation and expect, I mean, unless society is going to completely change as a result, right? But
Yeah.
if we wanna continue some semblance of this, um, my question is, then, do you think what we're going to see over the next year or 2 is, first, even the young kids having some virtual supplement, right? Like, not spending, what how many hours a week are they in school?
You about 6 or 7.
6 or 7 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
How so oh,
Teachers are
so,
there longer. Teachers are
no,
there
no, so
longer.
I was asking about a week. So what
Oh,
is it
I'm
what,
sorry.
30, 35
About
hours a
35
week?
hours. Yeah.
Okay. So instead of having kids in schools or classrooms 35 hours a week, maybe they're only in the classroom 10 hours a week, and maybe the classrooms aren't these centralized buildings with 30 kids. Maybe all these little pockets of, you and four other kids, maybe it's just five, and the instruction is coming from educators, but the educator doesn't have to be in every single room. Does that make sense? Like if you took maybe there was like you have a course in your class and you're teaching it virtually, and there's five or six different rooms, and they don't have to all be in the same building. They can be anywhere because the instruction is virtual. And now we just need a supervisor, for each of those rooms. Is something like that what we're going to see? I mean, how are we going to do this?
Yeah, again, the hard thing is, again, we're talking about very, very young kids in some of these
Yeah.
situations. Again, like kindergarten, it's like, oh, the thought of them doing anything online is really kind of unthought of right now, really. But so it would have to be much more like parent involved at that point, where it was what they call as a flipped classroom. And what that is, and in the way, it's the same thing what a lot of adults do for a meeting. You don't go to a meeting not knowing to find out everything. You brief yourself so you can have a conversation about how to like solve some sort of problem. So the kids do a
Mm,
lot of a flipped classroom model is to like read. Oh, the same thing in college. You read the passage, then you come in and talk about it, type of thing. So like they have some home instruction to set up the foundation, and then we implement in person. And who knows, that model you were saying, maybe 10 hours a week instead of the 35 hours a week. Maybe it's even just changing it, like we're on a month, off a month type of thing. Just
mm,
change, just to have less interaction together at one time rather than having a big clump in the summer, just
right.
so it's not. I don't know. I don't know if that would even make much of a difference, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say right now. That example you just said reminded me of when I played in rock bands and stuff for years. Well, there was an old saying in bands, you don't um, band practice is not for learning the song. Band practice is for learning how to play the song together, right?
Yes.
You were
Yep.
supposed to know your song. You were supposed to know your part cold before practice. When we
Yep.
all get together, we get together to take each of our individual pieces and collaborate, and transform it into something new. So, uh, yeah, I mean, this everything is so. I feel like every conversation I have like this lately, and it feels like this has already been going on for so long. It's been like 2 weeks. Like,
Yeah.
in
I
2
know.
weeks has felt like a year, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, time just it feels like it's fleeting and infinite all at once right now.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
bizarre.
just to add on to that too. See, at this point where we are right now, and it is March 24th at this time when we're recording, and like you said, we're about 2 weeks into it. In a way, I felt like everything was a little bit overdone because as far as producing content for students and stuff, because right now how long we've been off isn't any longer than like the holiday break, you know?
Mm,
And when most teachers get back from holiday break, even though we love our jobs, we don't walk in like, "Oh, I'm so glad to be back." It's like, "Oh, can," usually the conversation is, "Can you believe how fast that break went by?"
mm,
That type of conversation. Where right now, even though it hasn't even been that long, we're already missing it
yeah.
in ways we wouldn't have if we had the time off for a different reason. It's because of why this is happening, and not just why, but also just knowing what the future is starting to look like.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
really changed
it's
the tone of it.
yeah, the tone yeah, it's hard because I don't wanna have these conversations go too bleak, but it's kind of just hard not to right now, and I feel like it's disingenuous to put on a smile and just go, "It's gonna be okay," because like, nobody really knows right now,
Well,
but
I think it is gonna be okay. I do think it's gonna be okay. It's just not gonna be the same, and that's
yeah,
okay. It's scary. It's really scary, and it's probably easier for me to say than it is for a lot of people, and I don't take that lightly when I say
yeah.
that, but everything will be okay. It just will not be the same.
Well, I don't know if everything will be okay. See, that's where I might that's maybe where we're disagreeing on the kind of like positivity thing right now. It's like, yeah, like the world will go on, right? I mean, business will continue, education will continue, but for many, many people who are going to lose people and lose careers and lose life savings and lose, right? It's not going to just be okay. It will continue, right? Those of us who are still here will continue, but it will not just be okay. It will be um, very tragic, and we will continue. And so I guess I get nervous about like I'm a
No,
big fan
I
of
see exactly what you're
yeah,
saying. I don't want to make it sound too bleak, but some
yeah,
people won't continue,
right.
you
Bingo,
know? And
bingo,
then that
exactly,
is the difference. And I know, but I do get what you're saying. Because sometimes some people have done nothing else
right,
in what they've
right.
been doing, and that's very scary.
But having said that, if you're going to look at the silver lining, if you're going to look at take what you can, take control of what you actually can, right? And this you've seen this going around social media and kind of floating around some of the, kind of you see this. It feels a little self-helpy, but I think this is really important right now, which is that more than ever, this is the time to recognize what you actually can and actually cannot control. And right now, you can't control almost anything, but you can control to some degree how you react to all the stuff you can't control, right?
Yeah.
You can decide how to react to it, and you can actually choose, instead of reacting to it, to invent the next thing instead of reacting to what's happening now, which is what we were talking about earlier. How are you going to help invent the new world of business or education? And speaking of which, you're helping invent the new world of education, because right before we got on this, George Takei again shared one of your videos, which is amazing. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was really cool. No, I've been doing these for the last 2 weeks. I've been doing these lessons for my students, art lessons, because that's what I am during the day, an art teacher. But so I've been doing digital art lessons for my students, but using things around the house rather than traditional art mediums because they don't have that at home. I'm assuming most of them, and if they do have it at home, there's billions of tutorials online of what they can do with it. They don't need me to make something brand new just for them necessarily, though it is probably nice to have them see their teacher's face do it. But I wanted to make something that was accessible to the
Yeah.
students. And no, yeah, he shared it, and it's really exciting too because a lot of the
Tell,
kids'
tell
artwork
us,
is in there.
yeah, tell us what the actual video was that he shared.
Sure. Yeah, the video that they shared was the lesson that I did was the first lesson I did is I want to make a lesson that was accessible for kids to do at home, not using any paper, pencil, marker, crayons, anything like that, or paint. So what I did is I came up with this lesson where instead of drawing with like a pencil, what you do is you take your laundry and you can lay the clothes out to create different shapes, either flat or what have you. And in my example, I took some blue towels and some blue jeans, laid it down at the bottom to make like waves, and then some black socks and made a little boat like this. Took a shirt, folded it into a triangle shape to make a little sail, and then crunched up a little yellow shirt to make a sun. And I had this little piece of art. And then the point was to take a picture of it and then post it so that the actual artwork becomes the photograph, almost like a Mandela, a laundry
Yeah.
Mandela is really what it was in some way. But I had a great response from it. Tons
Yeah.
and tons of my students ended up posting their art in the comments. Some of them did videos of their art. I also recommended kids to do a little animation and showed how to kind of do that
Yeah.
for that way it was more accessible to the younger kids and the older kids, which was nice.
Yeah.
And actually, people have been sharing it all over, and other schools have been using it, which has been great. And then they shared it, which was really special because again, what I love about how they shared it is they re-edited it and added in because obviously I didn't have student artwork in there because the lesson hadn't happened yet.
Right.
But in this one, they were able to add in a bunch of the student work and I think the kids will be really excited to see their work there.
It it's amazing, and we'll obviously there will be a link to that in the comments, or rather in the description. I've been live streaming on Facebook, so I'm talking about comments. There will be a link in the description with that. So I think that is like the perfect example and probably a great way to end this particular session. It's a great example of how to invent what's coming next instead of just reacting to all the things that we're losing. So.
Yeah. No, yeah, and here's the thing too, because I think a lot of other art teachers started doing little tutorials and stuff too, which is great. But I I I really wanted to make sure that when people start doing stuff, especially in a time like this, is to make sure you're doing it for the audience. And like again, a lot of the other things that I've been seeing is people using paintbrushes and paints and things. They're not. I don't think they're all thinking about what the families are going through,
Yeah.
and as much as and what's accessible to them at this time. And it's almost like a hollow gift in a way to not keep those things in mind when trying to do something for other people. So just making sure, yeah, that you're really doing something for them.
Yeah, it's perspective taking, pure and simple.
Yeah,
It's just, what is the vantage point of the person I'm making this for? And if what you're making doesn't reach that,
yeah,
why are you making it?
yeah,
Yeah.
wonderful.
So, a lot to think about. This was kind of a mellow episode. I'm sure we will find ways to I think what we're gonna be able to talk over the next few weeks, over the next few sessions of this, more about the good stuff, the creative new ideas. Because like I've in the last 2 weeks, I've already started to build a complete like new business from scratch. Basically, like I spent the last 15 years, I mean, I shifted from magic to speaking along the way, but it's basically the same business. I just continued this one thing and it just halted. It was all live speaking. I flew around the world and I stepped on stages that used to be magic. Then I was speaking speeches. 2 weeks ago, it ground to a halt, maybe forever. And I've always wanted to be able to build a virtual business so I could spend more time at home, more time with my family, less time in hotel rooms. But because I was on the hamster wheel of my career, there was never a moment to breathe and do it, and in the last 2 weeks, I've made more progress towards that than I have in the last 3, 4, 5 years of thinking about it, so I think we'll be able to start talking about what's coming out of this, and
Yeah,
showing other examples that you and I are seeing of other people and what they're building. Because I'm seeing magicians doing virtual magic shows with great success, something that a couple of weeks ago I just laughed at, and now it's working, like, people love it, so there's all kinds of interesting things coming out of this.
yeah, that is interesting. I would not have expected that either.
I got a request for one. I'm
Yeah,
doing
I saw you
one
post
next.
on it that you accepted it. I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow!" Especially how I know we had talked about it too, and I was like, "Wow!" You know what though? You gotta and at least, especially because I know what your flavor was about it before, I was glad that you're at least giving it a chance, because you just never know too. Maybe you'll do it and you'll be like, maybe this, even though it worked, it's not for me,
Yeah,
but it's
maybe,
worth
right?
trying,
But
right?
right now, everybody is kind of at square one again. And that maybe that, if anything else, especially if you're younger in your career, if you're newer, if you just started last year, your photography business, and all of a sudden it just got wiped out, right? Or whatever. One of my friends and mentors, Tim David, he posted something the other day that I just thought was really spectacular in terms of a perspective shift. He said, "Nobody has 20 years experience dealing with this now.
Yeah,
If you just started this year versus someone who's been in the game for 20 years, doesn't matter anymore. They don't have 20 years experience dealing with this. They have 20 years experience in an industry that doesn't exist anymore. So
yeah,
everybody has square one right now, and the
yeah,
question is who's going to be the leader a year from now?
yeah,
It doesn't have to be the people that used to have 20 years on you. It can be
yeah.
you."
No, you're right. Yeah, that's great. Wow.
So, well, on
Get
that
out
note,
there, start something. Be the change you wanna see. Now's the time. Even though it's a scary time, seize the day.
seize the day, and I'm gonna go seize some snacks. So,
Alright.
until then, on to the next
On to the next
project.
project. I forgot.
You missed it.
Perfect.
You missed it.
I did. Alright, bye.
Bye.